a brand is it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like, I think that's just one of the challenges working with CEOs in general, or, you know, marketing leaders with high expectations, is they have unrealistic expectations, right? Let's actually, because a lot of like overnight successes, it wasn't obviously overnight. It was a lot of work with a quick sprint at the end. And you only see that quick sprint at the end where they became an overnight success, and then the media and everyone kind of glorifies these stories, but it just sets us marketers up for failure.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, we're doing this. I'm excited. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. The guest we have today is a hard man to get on a podcast. Okay, sometimes it's my fault, but this guy is busy and he is creating things. He is teaching things. He's learning things. He's leading marketing teams. Man, I can't wait to learn from him today. Can't wait to tell you about him. He's a serial entrepreneur, creator, marketing leader, thought leader, community whisperer, advisor, podcaster. He's co-founder of the Forge community. He's host and creator, Stack and Scale. It's both a podcast and a newsletter all about AI for marketers. Definitely on the cutting edge right there. Fractional marketing leader to multiple B2B tech companies. Brandon Redlinger, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you so much. That was a great introduction. I hope I live up to the hype.
Well, it's easy when you do a ton of things. You kind of need to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to lose myself in that intro, man. I'm excited to have you here. We're making this thing happen. And I got to learn from you today. So I'm going to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but when you're a leader to multiple companies, you get strong. So hold on, you're just.
Okay, I got it.
Want it? Okay, Brandon, take Thor's hammer. Smash for me some kind of marketing myth, a bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Okay, the myth that I'm busting is every media company should be a media company. That is not true. I think it's more harmful than helpful. And like, I get why this phrase became popular, but the myth is every company should be a media company. Not true. It's not true.
Not true. And this is this whole thing of like, they see Red Bull making TV and they go, well, we should all just be Red Bull and make TV and make movies. And you're like, but you sell like toilet cleaning products. Like why, or right? Or you sell, B2B SaaS. Like why are you trying to be Red Bull? Like what's going on here? What are people getting wrong?
I think it became popular because like it's punchy, it's aspirational, but behind every good, marketing soundbite on LinkedIn, a lot of it boils down to some marketer working at one of these vendors evangelizing this idea. And every once in a while, a good soundbite like this sticks. And then, also consultants, right? Consultants and vendors love this because it's kind of a Trojan horse into selling their marketing software or their services. But I also think you make a good point there too, is they see companies out there like Salesforce or whatever, who have their own media brands, or HubSpot, who have acquired, companies out there and are building media arms within their company. And then the CEO or even the CMO in many cases, I think CMOs are guilty of this too. They see that and they go, oh, that's great. I see them everywhere. That's a good strategy. Let's do that. We should be a media company. Right. And then that just leads to unrealistic expectations. Everyone wants that Ferrari, but they're only willing to pay for like a Kia. And it's burnout. And I think it just sets a lot of people up for failure.
Yeah, I love that we're chatting about this because, as you know, I like to launch podcasts for companies, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out if I'm a hostile witness or not yet. I haven't decided yet. So what are people, are you saying they want to change the whole company to being media companies? Are you saying we can't even have a podcast? Or talk to me about what it means when they go to the extreme of wanting to be a media company.
Yeah. So I think it's like They want the Netflix style production. They want to be in so many different, channels. They wanna be everywhere. They want even the CEO to be on, you know, to have this, like, TV style production and distribution and audience. And I'm actually I'm a big fan of podcasting, as you probably know. I think
You got your own free yeah,
yeah, I've had I started my first podcast in 2015 before it was even popular, and
you and Joe Rogan just hanging out and making podcasts when no one else is thinking about it.
yeah, no, I wish, but do you remember the company Data Nice?
Yeah, I'm not sure why I do, but I do.
Yeah, so they were one of the cool hot companies out in Silicon Valley. So the co-founder of Data Nice and I started a podcast. Ben Sardella, shout out Ben, a good buddy, great guy. But yeah, I mean, we were. It even felt like then, it was just the really early days, but I still feel like podcasting is relatively early days. I mean, everyone's doing a podcast now, but I think there's a lot of room for actual great podcasts, and like it's about the content and the thought leadership that you're bringing, not necessarily the actual production of it. Now, I do think there is a time and place for agencies. There's a time and place for the right technology, and including using AI to help us produce this content and whether it's from podcasts or doing video. But the bottom line is just that if you want to truly be a media company, there's a lot of things that actually go into that. You have to act like a media company. So having something like a podcast and a blog and a video, great. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but we have to really set our expectations properly here. Because if you look at media companies, right, like their revenue model is different. Media companies have multiple revenue streams that fuel their content. They have advertising, they have subscriptions, they have apps, they have licensing, they have syndication, right? And I mean, I encourage people go look at a balance sheet of a media company. Right? Like it's gonna be a lot different than what your balance sheet looks like.
Yeah, like the clouds have parted and it makes sense. And especially as you said, look, you can have a blog, a video. That doesn't make you a media company. Media company is when you take it so extreme. And I agree with this, man. The idea of like, I want to be famous, like it. And to your point with media company, the metrics they're tracking for, not even in the sheet, but like they need the clicks, they need the eyeballs. They're you're like a media company, you're competing with Joe Rogan. Like you're not gonna be Joe Rogan. Like, you know, so it's all in man. I've the worst, people when they come try to launch a podcast with us, now we know to watch out for. If we're like, why are you doing this? They're like, we want to be famous. You're like, okay, well, this is probably not the method for you. And those people have their things messed up, right? They're trying to, I guess, what is that? You're trying to be flashy?
Well, let me know if you agree with it. Well, I think it can be a few different things, but a lot of times if a CEO says that, yeah, and they either wanna be famous, and then the challenge is, like, you can't nail them down for a consistent time to record the podcast, or they don't have anything interesting to say, or they're just really boring on mic. They don't have hot takes. They're not willing to kinda stir the pot a little bit or have a contrarian take. They wanna be so vanilla and plain and down the middle, and when that's the case, no one gives a shit about it, right?
And the added expense of the studio and yeah, a little shout out to Salesforce. You go to Dreamforce and you see this whole setup with the mics and the lights and the cameras,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, wow." But then you're right, then you get the people on there and maybe they don't have a hot take. Maybe they're and you're like, "Wow, this is the fanciest, boringest thing I've ever listened to ever," you know? And they spent way more than that podcast that this other guy is doing over here.
Yeah, exactly. Like these companies have big content production teams, right? And they pay salaries to journalists and writers and producers and content creators and influencers. And it's the equipment, it's the technology, it's the studio, it's location cost. Because I've been at a company before where we did have a pretty highly produced podcast, and with great distribution and production, but we sold sponsorships to that actually covered all the costs, and that's amazing. That's great. But we actually had talent with a followership. It wasn't the CEO saying, "I want to be on the podcast," or "I want the head of marketing because we're selling marketers behind a podcast or whatever, right? Like, I think there's a right way to do it. But we have to be realistic with ourselves. Like, why do we really want to do this? What's the outcome? And is this the most appropriate way to do it? Building this media arm, and oftentimes it's not. But I tell people too, like, okay, start small. Think about it from a growth perspective, right? How can we start small, test, and then test as low risk and as quickly as we can to prove it out, and then we can go all in, or we can say, you know what, maybe there's a different execution of this. Let's try something else. And if a few things don't work, maybe this is not the right approach.
What if that person hearing you goes, but Brandon, the brand, we're growing our brand, bro. How do you respond to that?
I think it's similar, right? Everyone wants a brand these days, and they point to the companies that have big brand names and that are always in the consideration set because they have a good brand. But it's like, okay, well, is that company like your company? Let's look at what they did to actually build that brand. Are we willing to do those same things? And if the answer is no, then it's okay, maybe this is just too aspirational, too pie in the sky, too unrealistic for us right now. Or is there a different approach that we can take to building the brand? Because of course, brand is can be a pretty distinct advantage these days, but a brand is it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like, I think that's just one of the challenges working with CEOs in general, or marketing leaders with high expectations, is they have unrealistic expectations. All right, let's actually, because a lot of like overnight successes, it wasn't obviously overnight. It was a lot of work with a quick sprint at the end. And you only see that quick sprint at the end where they became an overnight success, and then the media and everyone kind of glorifies these stories, but it just sets us marketers up for failure.
And that makes sense. It sounds like a giant distraction.
Yeah, it's a huge distraction. And honestly, it burns teams out a lot because the actual people on the line, on the hook for creating a lot of this stuff, now they got to work extra. They got to work overtime. And again, I think there is a time and a place for AI, for technology, and for actual services to help you execute a lot of this stuff. But like, let's prove it out first. Let's not go
Yeah.
all in. Let's not buy a technology and be locked into a year or multi-year deal when we don't even know if this is actually a viable strategy.
Yeah, it's hard, man. And then, that may or may not have a lift. And yeah, I see all that. It makes total sense. If that's what not to do, what should we be spending our time and attention on instead?
I think about this a lot, and I think it's about like right sizing your ambitions and placing your bets in the right spot. And what I think, okay, before that, even let's clarify our goals, right? Is it brand authority? Is it pipeline? Is it thought leadership? Is it community growth? Is it audience? And then let's make sure that our expectations are in line. And then let's actually start to test it. Again, I'm a huge fan of setting up sprints and testing and then iterating from there. So, okay, let's just get all of our ideas down. Any idea go. Let's have a brainstorming session. No judgment on the idea, because I think judgment. So people are like so quick to just jump to judge ideas, and then it actually starts stifling creativity and discussion. So it's like, okay, get all the ideas down. This is just a brainstorming and creative session here. No judgment whatsoever. And you, the leader, have to start with like the dumbest idea, so that no one is afraid to throw out dumb ideas, right?
We have a rule in our team that the brainstorm session is not done until we have like a ridiculous idea.
Yeah, 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 exactly. I love that.
Let's send the prospect a glitter bomb. Like, okay, now we're good, right? But until we have that zany thing that says like, well, you know what, show up to their house and do a singing telegram. Like, okay, cool. Now I think we're probably, and then sometimes that works, and then 9 more ideas come from that. So you're right. You need to like, put the judgment aside, but also stir the pot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, some of my best marketing ideas come from outrageous ideas, but then we go, okay, you know what? There's actually probably something behind this. There's a better way for us to do this at scale, right? Like that discussion led to what we actually ended up doing. So yeah, like everyone get a don't be constrained. Like that's the hardest part is like throw out an idea and like, okay, to execute that, that would be like $1 million. Okay, like what like, one of the ideas for a company that I was working with was, what if we got Pitbull? And someone automatically was like, "No, no, God, do you guys know how much Pitbull will cost?" I'm like, "No, hold on. Like, sure, but don't dismiss that immediately.
Shut up, Raymond. Let us talk. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, like, what if we got a Pitbull look-alike and we started to create some buzz?" And people go, "Wait, is that Pitbull? Wait, oh no, is that? I don't know. Is that actually Pitbull?" And then people are like, "Have you guys seen the guy that's walking around the show floor that is, acting like Pitbull? Like, was that actually him?" Or whatever, right? And then a lot of creative ideas can come off of the back of that. So I think that's the hardest part is with these brainstorming sessions is don't pass judgment so quickly, and then after you have all your ideas and refine those ideas, then we can start to prioritize. And I like the ICE framework: impact, confidence, and ease. How big of an impact do we think this idea is going to have? What is our confidence level in that? And then how easily can we actually execute this given the resources, given the budget, given the timeline? Uh, and then let's pick our top, you know, 1 or 2. I wouldn't do more than that. And then how can we test this as quickly and easily as possible, right? And testing means, okay, here's our hypothesis, here's our success criteria, here's our failure criteria. So now, yeah, now the growth marketer and he's really coming out here. But it's how do we test this small risk as possible? Let's do quick sprints, and then let's come back and say, okay, here's what we said we were going to measure. How did we do against this? If it hits our success criteria, great. Let's double down and see if we can start to scale this. If it meets your failure criteria, okay, cut it, move on to the next one. Because you have to have that failure criteria part too, because otherwise you can start iterating and start to, say, but what if we do this instead? Let's do another test. But that didn't work. Okay, let's do something else. Let's try something. And you can iterate a million times and just be wasting cycles on just trying to figure out how to make it work. And then the other thing I'm really big on too is documentation. Let's actually figure out what's our methodology for this. Let's document it so that when new marketing leader comes in a year from now, they have the same idea. We can come back and say, okay, we tested that. Here's how we tested it. And then they can say, oh, you're right. This idea that I want you to do is probably not going to be worth it. Or they can come back and say, you know what? I think you guys approached it wrong. What if we did it this other way and tested it this other way? So I'm huge on documentation. If anyone follows me on LinkedIn, I probably write about documentation and push that like too much, but I'm really big on documentation.
Well, it makes sense, right? Because you get both answers. Oh, why don't we try this? Yeah, they tried that like 2 years ago and it definitely didn't work. What exactly did they try?
I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
They tried LinkedIn ads.
What was the strategy? What was the bidding strategy? What was the audience that we went after? Yeah,
Yeah. Or worse, you threw $200,000 at it and no one even remembers it. So you test it again, like Groundhog Day.
that happens all the time, especially with new CMOs coming in.
Yeah, new leaders come in, they had no idea.
For sure.
Yeah, documentation. But what's crazy is like the documentation is like delayed gratification. It's helping future you or future organization out, not you now, which is I think why sometimes it gets neglected.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And then, yeah, and then after you start to see some success, right? Now is a good time to say, okay, let's start to automate this. And automation again can be with technology or it can be with services or people, right? Does this merit another headcount on your team to help grow? And is this contributing that much to your actual company goals? Or is it a service or a consultant that can come in and do this for us? Or is it a technology that we're going to buy that's now it's actually worth investing that, first year contract of that new technology in, right? Again, proved out first, and then we can invest there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. And in the tested approach is it's so smart, and the idea of just go for it, right? Just, but be intentional about it and remember things and write things down. Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, and again, like, it's I do think a big challenge is, again, just setting expectations, right, with your CEO or your marketing leader if they're the ones coming to you with this idea of, "We need to be a media company."
Right. You're not going to have 10,000 people watching your show. Yeah, I feel like so much effort gets put to the content creation and so little distribution, you know?
100%. Yes, focus as much on the distribution as the content, and I think about, like, getting in front of the right people instead of just trying to hit those TV level volumes and viewership. It's like it's not about the numbers. A lot of that are like those are vanity metrics in a lot of cases, right? So I'd rather put out good quality content for the right people, even though that defined audience is a lot smaller. It's the right people
Right.
because it'll resonate with them more. Like, an early mentor of mine used to say, if you're trying to talk to everyone, you're talking to no one. You can't be plain vanilla.
Yeah, everything to everyone is actually terrible. Yeah, it's usually just not never a good idea.
Yeah, it doesn't resonate with anyone because you have to be so down the middle to try to say something that everyone would agree with. And honestly, a lot of times getting everyone to agree with you really isn't going to do anything for you, right? Another early mentor of mine used to say, if you're not pissing someone off by noon, you're not doing it right. Maybe that's a little too extreme, but like the idea is right. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You just need the right people to agree with you.
I think that's just that we all appreciate when people niche down. I know I do as a marketer, right? And a buddy of mine, Cal, he's an accountant, CFO, fractional CFO, like all the things. He's at a cool company. Shout out to Cal. And he had his group has pivoted and they realized they work with so many agencies over time now. They are bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Oh, I'm like, "Let's go." Like, that is so niche, man. You're not even saying, like, for agency, you're like, "Marketing agencies, I got you. I know your numbers. I know what they should be. I know." I'm like, "Dude, I respect that," you know? Like, that is where we all kinda wanna be, and so many people that I chat with, and this is really hard in SaaS too, where especially as you add AI in there, and you're definitely, the cutting edge of this, and you talk to those people, but AI has now made it so that your platform does a lot more than it used to, and then now you're in, like, 9 different categories, which is too many categories, right? You're in all of the categories, which means you're in none of the categories.
Yeah, being so deep in AI, I think in general, across the marketing tech stack, and then also content marketing specifically, it's going to get worse before it's going to get better with AI because AI promises so much. And if you look out there, all of the thought lead, like the quote unquote AI thought leaders, everything is the coolest, greatest, most amazing thing ever. But let's take GPT-5 for example. Um, a lot of people were like, we probably follow a lot of the same people, but like some people out there on LinkedIn are like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. Here's how I'm using it. And by the way, buy my course. But if you look at the actual analysts and the people in the weeds and, the people working in the field, they're all saying GPT-5 was actually a letdown. It was a disappointment. So you have two extremes and you've got to really think, what are the motivations behind why someone is saying, "Wow, this is the greatest thing ever. You gotta come check it out."
That's almost the warning right there too. And then it's, "Oh, now you're a media company. I'm trying to get clicks and likes," and
Yeah, yeah. And then come buy my course?
yeah, like, and that's the biggest it's noise, right? Maybe we can start talking about noise. AI creates noise, but then we're making noisy stuff anyways, and just but like the people, if you try to go like YouTube, try to find a video on like advanced AI, use case, like, you just got, oh, here's my prompts, and
Yeah. Here's this end-to-end workflow that turns, my one workflow into a whole media company and posts to 9 different, social media platforms and all of this, and, I'm gonna give you the template if you sign up for my school community that's a paid community. It's like but, like, one, that's a bait and switch. That drives me crazy when people do that. But two, if you've ever tried one of those things, it doesn't work. It never works as it's expected to. And why I say that it's gonna get worse before it's gonna get better, like, so many people like you and I right now, if we looked at a LinkedIn post or an email, we can tell pretty quickly, pretty easily right now that whether it was written by AI. There are certain things that give it away, whether that is pretty obvious things like the structure of like question then answer, not this, but that. And of course, the most famous one out there are the M dashes. And then, there are now prompts and tools that you can use to actually remove M dashes. But,
Can you? Because that needs to go, man. Those M dashes are
I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better because, there's so much overpromise and hype with this AI, um, and then companies are gonna start using AI to write and produce everything, and it's gonna be obvious AI, and you're gonna lose that trust with the people that you're actually going after. So, like, use AI properly with, like, insights and help you do a lot of the tedious tasks, but don't pretend to be human when you're actually AI. I think that I was actually just scrolling last night. I was scrolling social and I came across a HubSpot ad and I was like, wait, is this AI? It was AI. It was a guy talking and it was AI. And then I got so focused on trying to figure out, is this AI or is this not AI that I completely lost the message. Right? I was like, "Well, I didn't even pay attention to what he just said. I'm just trying to figure out if this is AI or not." And then, "Oh, it's AI, but it's pretending to be human." It immediately, like, lost credibility and trust.
dude, I've gotten those, classic spam emails that are like, "Hey, Casey, I've scraped your LinkedIn profile and could your, mountain that you do ski patrol on use my could you use a 30,000 list of Salesforce users at that mountain?" It's like, "Your perp has gone crazy. Stop emailing me."
Yeah, I get those all the time because one of the top things on my profile is my newsletters, my Stack and Scale newsletter, and then someone does their outreach is Stack and Scale looking to grow their demand gen, but struggling to like, no, it's a newsletter. No, what are you talking about? That's how I know you're using AI or not thinking.
And how do you cut through the noise? Because it only gets noisier, right? Like, it's already noisy, but then AI just people just creating crap at ad nauseum at scale.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you some of the ways that I'm using AI. I just actually posted this on LinkedIn. I'm using Clay and some AI within Clay, and one of my workflows that my sales team is loving, so they love me for giving it to them, is we have a closed one deal. Now let's actually look at all of the similar companies, and we can put constraints on that. Similar companies to this close one deal within this revenue range or this geo or this industry, or, you can build on top of that. And then of those companies, okay, now let's look at the decision makers within that company. And then let's start to use AI to scrape their website for recent news, where they were in the news, key hires, product releases, updates, right? Like that scrapes it all. I'm even looking at their top competitors and summarizing that, and then looking at, okay, based on what you know about that company and based on what you know about our use case or our case studies, match the appropriate case study to that company. And then I'm putting all of that automatically into a Google Doc and then slacking it, and it puts it into that doc. That doc gets automatically dropped into Slack. So now that rep has everything that they need to know to make a good email. I'm not writing the email for them. I'm doing the research to make their lives easier. Okay, here's the dossier of everything that I need to know about this client or this prospect, and then here's the reference customer that we just closed that we can now drop in. And then now they can do the work of actually writing an intelligent, good, thoughtful email, not automating the entire email.
And that data can really make for a great email, but you're right, at that point, it then is like, "Okay, now we gotta make don't go try to cheat and throw it now back into AI to spit out your email."
Yeah, I just saved you tons of time. Now you can spend a little bit of time actually crafting this and putting it together and actually sending the email.
Well, how do you like to learn? What are your input sources?
I have like learning FOMO in the sense that, like, when I see a Substack or when I see a podcast or when I see a LinkedIn post or whatever, it's like, "Okay, I gotta listen to that. I gotta read that." But some of my top ones are, I love, the HubSpot podcast with Kip and Kieran, Marketing Against the Grain. Yeah, that's a great one. And that's more for, like, hands-on actual marketing. There's the AI Marketing Institute. They put out a podcast called, oh, God, here, let me just look it up real quick. It's gotta be, like, top of my but they're really good for just, more like, uh, news about AI. I think Lenny's podcast and Lenny's newsletter does a pretty good job. Although, he takes more of a product approach to it because Lenny's a product guy. I keep up with that. Um, and then people I follow, Justin Norris is a great one, writes a lot about AI on his Substack. And yeah, there's a bunch of people I follow. There's a guy named Charlie Hills, although some of his stuff is kind of what I talked about in that, like, you got to be careful because, oh my God, GPT-5's out and it's the greatest thing ever, and yeah, but he does a lot of, like, actual, like, practical, tactical use cases, and even templates that you can just grab and steal and use. Another one that's actually probably one of my top recommendations, Dan Sanchez, if you know Dan Sanchez. Yeah, awesome dude, in the weeds of AI, and, he's over at Social Media Examiner, and he's also one of those guys who's also trying to do a lot himself too. He just launched his own company, Solo Scaled, and, there's a lot of other things, but he's another, his podcast is called AI Driven Marketer, another guy that's pretty in the weeds, actually showing you the things that he's doing and not just, like, high level strategy or high level just, you know, um pontification of ideas. It's like, here's what I'm doing, here's how I'm doing it.
Man, and learning is just it's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, man. Well, my next question is like, who are you? Who are you? Are you all of these things? Can you take me back in time, little Brandon days? Did you know you're going to be leading marketing teams all over the place, innovating with AI, being a thought leader, teaching other people? Take me back. What was it like?
Oh God, no, no, I mean, I never thought I would be here, doing fractional and consulting and having my own Substack and community. A lot of this stuff is, again, it's just like scratching my own itch. Like, even when people say you're a thought leader, you're an influencer, I kind of go, I'm not like, I no. Sure, maybe some people think that I am. I've got some followers on LinkedIn, but my goal is never to be this thought leader. And I've always been, even back to, like, my college days, I was captain of the hockey team, and they made me captain.
Oh, you're a hockey guy. Let's go.
Yes, let's go. So, yeah, high school and through college, I was always the lead by example guy, not the, like, rah rah, get up in front of the team and give the, biggest inspirational speech. It's, here's the guy that's doing the fundamentals right, that's actually holding his team accountable and helping his team, not the biggest, loudest, strongest voice in the room. So yeah, that's always been kind of my modus operandi is, let's lead by example. Let's do this. Here are the things that I'm going to do. And I've always been more the type that's like, let me share this. I love sharing. I love teaching. I love doing all this. And I think what makes me a good marketer is I actually started out in sales. My first real job out of college was doing sales. This is before, I'm kind of dating myself, but this is before they called it SDR. Like, I was an SDR. I was an SDR responding to inbound leads, and we were on the phone 7 hours a day, and it was a grind. It was a boiler room, but I loved it. And I wouldn't trade it in for anything else.
It makes you such a better marketer, to have been in the hunt and understand the highs and lows and the rejections and the wins of sales to understand, hey, how can we make their life easier?
Yeah. It's about how do we become a better counterpart? And yeah, it's like the example that I like for this is, So my wife and I, when we got married, we did a whole choreographed dance as our first dance, and we were and I'm a terrible dancer. Like I got 2 left feet, and we were having actual, you know, class private instruction to help us figure this out, and it was actually a lot of fun. But like every time the instructor got up, he's like, "Here, this is what you got to do to be a leader. Here's how your wife knows what she's gonna do next is you gotta lead her into that." And I was like, Dude, I'm trying to do that. Like, dude, do you not see me trying?" And then he's like, "You know what, Brandon? You be Megan right now, and I'll show you how to lead. And you actually can feel what I'm actually doing, and then you can feel what that actually feels like so that here's what Megan's looking for, my wife is looking for." And then after that, I was like, "Oh, that makes so much more sense." I was not doing that at all. And then every time I tried to go learn a new move, it was, "Okay, let me be her first." So, yeah, that translates into marketing because, yeah, this is what sales is looking for. This is how I be a good partner to sales. This is what they're looking for, and here's how we actually can work together better.
And knowing some of those things that some of your workflows would look up can be gold just to understand, oh, this is what you're dealing this is the insight or this is what you're dealing with or
Yeah, this is the thing that's actually helpful for sale. Like, they say that they need this, but the real thing that they're actually looking for is this. I can kinda weed that, cut aside some of the noise to help them find that signal a little bit easier because I've been in that mindset. I've been there before. I've been that person trying to prospect into the account because I carried a bag myself for 2 years.
exactly. Makes such a difference to do that. Well, my next question for you is a bit of a hypothetical question. Are you ready for this, sir?
I am quite ready.
Okay, you see, I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire. So let's say you come visit, inbound is back in Boston where it belongs. And, you drive up north, we get some beer, some lobster, and we use the time machine. It's in the backyard covered in tarp. So we just brush off the acorns and it's a particular kind of time machine where you get to go back and visit yourself, right? You get to go meet yourself a couple days after getting that comm degree, right? You just graduated, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. You get to go talk to that guy. What do you tell yourself?
Great question. I think the advice that I think is probably the most important advice is it's that old adage of you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But nowadays that has a bit of a new meaning, right? It's not just who are the people actually physically in your life, but also on your social media feeds, in your email, the people you're texting with, right? It's overall time and like your attention, not necessarily just who's in the physical presence with you the most. So be very careful about what social media platforms you're on. And if you're on TikTok so much and you're just doom scrolling, you're going to actually absorb a lot of that into your psyche and it's going to affect you. So it's who you're spending time with and the people you're following. Like the people you're following, that's makes such a huge difference. So just, yeah, I'd say be careful and figure out who, who are those 5 people for you and be very intentional.
Wow. Um, I've definitely heard that phrase before, but I am this year's old when I heard it ever compared to the people you interact with or you consume the most. And man, what a amazing thing to bring up. I feel like this, I mean, you have all sorts of powerful flips, but immediately I thought back to, I remember listening to Joe Rogan podcast a lot back in the day. And now there's just so much alternatives, but like I remember listening to that. I remember when eventually I did my own podcast, I would ask questions and I would even laugh the same way because I heard it so many times in the podcast. And lately I've been trying up a couple other shows, but the people are like, and some of these podcasters are really good. There's also like a Bible in a year podcast. So there's some other podcasts where, yeah. I mean, nothing wrong with Joe Rogan, but, like, I find that some of these other podcasts were like I'm like, "Whoa." Now laughing a little bit like that person. So it's a really good point.
Yeah, totally.
Listening to this now, you think, is Casey the guy in it that I would say, you know what? I will understand that now, take that forward and go, that is, a responsibility. And I know, Brendan, with your podcast too, that, for the people that listen to us, we are impacting them as if we're one of those 5 people. We are one of those 5 people.
And honestly, it even extends to like I give people this advice when they're joining companies. Do you want to be more like the people here? Right? Like, is this a lot of people go in thinking like I'll have a big effect on this company and be able to change this company. And they never think about, okay, how is that actually going to affect me and change me? Do I want to be more like these people here? Because inevitably you spend a lot of time with them, right? And it's going to change you in ways that you might not have anticipated.
And that's a really important point too. The people you work with you're often with more than your family,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
And so, yeah, you're not changing them. In fact, you're more likely to become more like them. So if they're a bunch of a-holes,
Exactly.
you're probably gonna start acting like that because it's normalized there.
It's the culture there. Like,
Yeah.
it's as much as you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you, and you have to approach it with the same rigor as they are approaching it to you.
Yeah. Critical. Ask about the culture. No, like, for real, what is the culture? I guess my follow-up question to you then would be, do you think you would listen to yourself if you appeared out of a time machine? Were you still playing hockey?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so would that guy listen to a slightly older guy?
Oh, that's a good question. I would hope so. No, I think so. I think so. I've always been a pretty coachable and pretty yeah, call it maybe humble guy who like I've never let ego get in my way. I always tell people like if you're going to criticize something of mine, like go for it. I'm not going to get hurt. Like if you want to say this email, Brandon, like so, even people like that have worked for me. It's like if you don't like this idea, if you don't like this email, I want that feedback. If you don't like this campaign, I want that feedback. I'd rather us be successful than me having to stroke my own ego and be right. You know, I think it's hard for people to do, but I've always taken that approach, and I think a lot of it is influence from my dad. He was always the growth mindset guy, and was always reading books and always looking to learn and develop. Personally.
What did he do? Like, what was his career?
He was a finance manager at Lockheed Martin's.
Okay, defense finance guy, but he's super self-aware and trying to grow, and dude, respect. And then you were able to just so you saw from an early age someone who's, like, trying to improve and work on themselves.
Yeah, and probably a lot of that was just I mean, yeah, my dad grew up on the farm, one of 8 kids, the first to put himself through college and then go get a real corporate job and be very successful, where a lot of my aunts and uncles, I mean, successful still, but they had their own farms, right? Like, I've got, an aunt and uncle, they have their own hog operation, a few thousand hogs, and they're doing really well, but they're farming. It's just a different life, different world.
And a lit and tough and harsh and hardcore. And as if we love visiting, Prince Edward Island because it is you're like, "Where are you going with this, Casey?" It's mostly farming, potato farming on the island, and just we find people just be so, genuine and friendly and nice.
Great work ethic. Yeah.
Well, hey, if people wanna reach out to you, where do you want them to go? How do you want them to connect?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best place. And yeah, I post relatively frequently. I go on and off. I'm not one of those thought leaders that posts every single day. I only post when I think I have something really interesting to actually share.
Those guys get annoying. We're like, "Stop trying to algorithm me here," you know?
Yeah, yeah, trying to hack the algorithm. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Brandon Redlinger. Also, as you mentioned, I recently started a Substack that is all about how marketers are actually using AI, and every episode is about, okay, what can we actually implement today? And you're getting a template or the copy and paste the prompt that we're using, or yeah, the an workflow or whatever it is. I recently put out the clay template. And I'm giving you straight up the clay template that you can import right into your own instance. So meant to be super helpful and tactical and actionable.
Yeah, dude, I like that. We'll link to all these things in the show notes and make it happen. But dude, thank you so much for coming on here. I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Long overdue. It was a blast.
We talked about so much here, but just making sure we're focused when we're creating things and not getting distracted, not trying to be a media company, be all Netflix famous here. We've got certain things we got to do. ICE formula, impact, confidence, ease. There was so much stuff here today, man. Masterclass. You are still crushing it. I'm so glad to have borrowed some of the time just to learn from you here today.
No, absolutely. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, I didn't think I would get into, so much reflection and, advice from or telling people about my choreographed wedding dance.
Oh yeah, I know. Like the things you get into, that's a mark of a. I was gonna say that's a mark of a good show, but now I'm just complimenting myself.
No, I do it 100%, man. Yeah, like, it's not the same old question that everyone is asking me all the time. Yeah, exactly. Or yeah, never told anyone about how much, my dad has had a big influence on my life. So, yeah, I appreciate you digging in there.
Yeah, like a little bit of self-reflection is a mark of a good guest because you're learning and thinking and innovating as we go. So, dude, thank you again for being on here.
This was a blast. Thanks, Casey.
All right, well, guys, if you learned something too, and I know you did because I freaking have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. We're going to share this with someone else. 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 9,000 would be cool. But really, just even 1 person who needs to hear this. Have you bumped in? Is it one of your friends, a fellow marketer? Are they a little bit Netflix distracted? Are they trying to make a media company when maybe they should just be focusing on the foundation and maybe helping solve some pain? Right? Share this with someone else. Get this. It's thought leadership, just getting good information in other people's hands. With that, Brandon, thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy cool, very exciting episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.